Hello, good evening, bye Elsa. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you're ready for today's show because today's show will be amazing, awesome, breathtaking. What other word do you want to hear? It's the Resourceful Women's Show on People's FM, and I'm Dr. Deborah TIMI-WOOD. This is the show where you get equipped with how to intelligently navigate your marital realities so that it doesn't overwhelm you and you can actually enjoy bliss in your marriage. You know, when we started the show, we said you should get a notebook, get a pen, write the Resourceful Woman Show on it, so you can always go back to it, read whenever you get stuck in any interaction to say, what do I do? What do I do? This is the Resourceful Woman Show. And we are ready. You know, I don't do it alone. We're always doing it together. I bring you in where you share your thoughts. And today's topic is super exciting. This is the topic everybody wants to have a knowledge about. Single, married, intending, divorced, separated, whatever the label used for your status in your relationship, everybody wants to talk about it. Would you like to guess? Would you like to guess? Now, before I even tell you what we're going to talk about, I want to share our numbers, so you get ready. So when it's time for you to call, you just, call, share your thoughts. So the number to use in reaching us is 090 6000, so 6000 2420. 090 60002420, or alternatively you can call 080 5455 4123. 080 5455 4123. Now, are you ready for the topic? Are you ready for what we're going to discuss today? Today, let us talk about submission. Submission in marriage. Let us talk about the truth regarding submission in marriage. Is it control? Is it something that is confusing? And here's what I want us to know even before we start this conversation. And that's the fact that there's always the assumption that everybody understands submission to mean the same thing. So we could just be speaking about submission and I'm like, in marriage, submission is very important. And the next thing you say, yeah, I agree. Or someone like, I don't agree with submission. And now there's this error we make. We all assume that we all know what submission is. There's this assumption that submission means the same thing across board. Now let me shock you. As a marital bliss coach, I've discovered that everyone has their personal understanding of what submission is. Yes, you will be shocked that if you ask your husband, or if you're the husband listening to me and you ask your wife that, what does submission mean? You discover when they start explaining it, defining it with all the grammar, it may just be distinct from what you have always believed. And that in itself is one of the reasons why people struggle with submission in marriage. Because how do you execute something that you do not know what it really means? Is that even possible? Is it possible to actually give your very best to execute something when you don't know what it means? So if you're somebody that you like, oh, my wife doesn't submit to me. Oh, you don't understand what's going on in our marriage. She's not submissive. Or you feel your husband is always demanding for submission. This is a good time to just pause and instead of accusing each other of saying, you're not submissive, you are demanding too much submission, the first place to begin is to actually know what submission is. And yes, I agree that for a lot of people, this is a sensitive conversation, but it is an absolutely necessary conversation that we must have. Right? So, what do you think submission means? this would be a great time to call and share your thoughts. We're live on Instagram. It's at Dr. Dobra TIMI-WOOD. We're live on TikTok at Dr. Dobra TIMI-WOOD. We're live on Facebook at Dr. Dobra TIMI-WOOD. Right? So we don't want to have this conversation alone. You can join us and we have the conversation together. What do you think submission in marriage means? Because for some people, they believe that submission is just peace. If there's peace in the home, the wife is submissive. Because one of the things that we must realize is that, especially as women, we cannot run away from the word submission. No matter how much we try, no matter how much we would want to run away from the word submission, as women, we cannot run away from the word submission. And I'll tell you why. Our faith teaches us submission. Culture demands submission. And some women just believe that submission means you're silencing them. So what that means is that we're in a society where a lot of us do not know what exactly submission is. Some men feel that submission means that you must acknowledge me as a leader. You must be in complete control. You must always agree to whatever I say. When I come home or whatever I'm interacting with you, I want to feel valued. I want to feel supported. Any form of resistance to whatever the husband says, then the wife is no longer submissive. But is that true? And when a man that believes that submission means complete leadership, no conversation, yes sir, whatever I say, how do you like? Yes, sir. Submit your salary. Yes. Submit your body. Yes, sir. Submit your mind. Yes, sir. Submit your prayer. Yes, sir. Submit your friendships. Yes, sir. So some people feel that is what submission is. And for such a wife that is married to a man that believes that is what submission is, she just believes that this man believes I should not think. I should always say yes to him. I should endure every and anything he brings. Whatever he says, I should fall in line. I shouldn't question him. I cannot be submissive. That is why we're having this submission issue. Whenever you see that there's something about marriage, one of the things that always come up is submission. What do men really want? Why are women not submissive? So today I want to know, what do you think submission means? In your own way, because everybody's entitled to their opinion and definition of submission. Hello, Tom. I'm seeing you on Instagram. Hello, everyone. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Hi. What do you think submission is? This is the Resourceful Woman Show with Dr. Dobra TIMI-WOOD. And today we actually want to demystify submission. So we don't, struggle with it. I've had millions of definitions of what submission is. And one of the important reasons why we should have this conversation is people can be married for 30 years and they have varied opinion of what submission is. And one place most husbands, now I'd have to say, most Christian husbands would always go to is Ephesians when they want to quote submission. Like the Bible said. But we need to know that the Bible that we use as a yardstick for what submission is actually positions submission as mutual respect. Submission is positioned as creating order in the home so that peace becomes easy. Submission is love in action. So submission is an act of love. And submission is not one-sided. And I think this is where it's a big deal for a lot of people. Because if you listen to a lot of married men talk about submission, it is usually one-sided. And that is why it's as though wives are fighting against it. No, there's no need for that. Submission is mutual. And the Bible said, men love your wife. Women submit to your husband. So what then is the problem when it has to do with submission? Why is it that this thing that is so easy is so complicated when it has to do with practicing it in marriage? The reason why there's so much hullabaloo about submission in marriage is because of interpretation. And that is why I said you could call us, you could send a message, you could drop your thoughts on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Dr. TIMI-WOOD, where you tell me what's your personal definition or understanding of what submission is. Let me share the number again if you don't have it. It is 090 60 00 2420. 090 60 00 2420. Alternatively, because this part of the world, network always has one thing it's doing to us. So we must have backup. So our backup number is 080 5455 4123. 080 5455 4123. This is People's FM, and we're discussing submission in marriage. And for the few minutes we've spoken, we've agreed that the reason why couples struggle with submission in marriage is because people have varied interpretation, varied definition of what submission actually means. So Mr. Ndubisi believes that for his wife to be seen as a submissive wife, it means that whatever he says goes. While his wife believes that submission is mutual in marriage, meaning that they would have a conversation, they would agree at something and they execute it. Now, if Mr. Ndubisi and Mrs. Ndubisi, with their varied definition of what submission is, spend time together as a couple, there will be squabbles in that marriage. It's as though you people are always coming out of one quarrel or entering the next quarrel. The primary reason why you're having that is not because of submission. It's because you have varied definition and interpretation of what submission in marriage is. So here's what every couple listening to me should do. So I want to give you an assignment. Let me give you an assignment today. Here's what you do. Before you sleep tonight, sit down with your spouse and ask your spouse, what do you understand by submission? What does submission mean? Now, if you see that your spouse cannot just define it by giving you one sentence of what submission is, it is fine for them to explain. The idea is not to look for who has the best definition of submission. That's not the goal. The goal is so that both of you will come to a mutual understanding of what submission means to both of you, and that guides your marriage. So instead of saying, oh, my wife is not submissive, that woman very disrespectful, she's not submissive, and instead of complaining that my husband is always demanding submission, this submission, they want to use it and kill women, everybody is shouting for submission, they just want to kill women. Instead of having all that, misunderstanding, it is simple. Have a conversation, speak to each other, explain, define, give examples of what you understand by submission. Now, it's okay if you have varied opinion, varied understanding of what submission is. That is why communication is super important. Do you understand? You speak, you have a consensus, you agree on what submission means to both of you. Now, there will be a situation where two people are holding, everybody's holding their ground that, this is what submission means to me. This is what submission means to me in the marriage. You have a consensus, because if a couple do not agree what submission means to them, there would always be stress in that marriage. Because for a husband that believes that submission means that whatever he says, his wife must do it, and the wife believes that submission means that when you say something, I will share my opinion and together would agree on something. You see the varied opinion they have. One is at A, the other one is at Z. If you don't come together and agree practically what submission means, then you would experience crisis in your marriage. But for the basis of understanding and making it very practical for you, so as you're listening to me, you don't leave the show confused in any way of what submission truly means, I will just give you certain words, certain phrases that would explain what submission is in marriage, or what it ought to be, what you should hold as submission. First, it is mutual honor. I've told you that when it has to do with submission in marriage, to work, not the one that one person will be having bad belly for the other person. When the other person is looking like, let me just endure this marriage. If I have money, I will just leave. Oh, I don't blame this person. Is it because I'm in this marriage? I'm not talking about the marriage where you're just counting the anniversaries. This is 20 years anniversary, 25 years anniversary, but I mean, you have deep-seated bitterness and anger. I'm talking about having a blissful marriage. One of the core things you should understand submission to be will be mutual honor. Submission is not servitude. Submission is not servitude. A lot of people believe submission to be servitude. And at this juncture, we must be honest to ourselves. Some of our spiritual leaders have really not done any justice to this subject matter. Some of our spiritual leaders have also contributed to the misinterpretation, the misunderstanding of what submission truly means in the society. And because we're very religious people. Africans are very religious, especially Nigerians. We're quite religious as a people. So when person is apostle, pastor, reverend, bishop, whatever the person says, we just literally take it as the voice of God. So when this person gives us an idea or a definition of submission, we take it as the mouthpiece of God has spoken. So that is what it is. We forget that sometimes when people speak, irrespective of their spiritual calling, sometimes there are cultural leanings, cultural beliefs that are embedded in their DNA, that irrespective of the titles or the togas they bear, is still expressed in their belief. So that is why I said the best thing to do for your marriage is to sit with your spouse and come to an agreement of what submission means practically for both of you in your marriage. Another dimension of submission in marriage is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is very, very important. It is emotional intelligence that will make you not say certain things that you feel strongly to say. It is emotional intelligence that will make you understand the times, understand the temperament of your spouse. Make you know that, we live to discuss another day. Not fight another day, but discuss another day. It's emotional intelligence that will make you know that you don't need to win every battle in a marriage. And that's a form of submission. It is not being stupid. It is being submissive because you have a core goal. Another dimension of submission that would help your marriage greatly is understanding your roles without losing your identity. Now, a lot of married couples are struggling. They're experiencing identity crisis because there's so much. People have become their roles. People have allowed their roles to shape their identity. So you meet a woman and all she wants to be identified with is, I'm a wife, I'm a mother. And it's as though when that identity is taken away from her, there's nothing else to her. And you shouldn't do that to yourself. Nobody should do that to themselves. It's interesting that we find that greatly amongst the female population. I think you rarely see a man that his identity is based off being a husband or being a father. A man is excited being a father. He's excited that he's a husband, but he doesn't build his identity on his marital status. So you are speaking to this man, his identity is etched on how resourceful he is, how hardworking he is, the results he's producing, and that is what goes forward as his identity. But for some women, the identity is, oh, Mrs. This, I'm so person's mother. It's great, it's beautiful, but your identity can be much more. That is why it's as though women get extremely hurt when there is a crack in the marriage. It's as though you're taking away the very core of their identity. Now, it is important, very important, within a few minutes remaining for the show, that everybody understands that submission is not control over your spouse. That is the wrong notion a lot of people have. A lot of people see submission as control over your spouse. So as the man, whatever you say goes, whatever you want, that is the right thing. I am the head of this home. If some women are giving $1 for every time they've heard I'm the head of this home, most women will be millionaires. Right? I feel like some wives are just laughing and like, I want to call, but if I call, I'm sure my husband will not recognize my voice on air. Right? So submission doesn't make you the lord and master of your wife. It is very important that we know that, because when you have the notion that because you are the head of the home, because your wife needs to be submissive to you, you then become a lord and master, that is when cracks would happen in your relationship. Especially in this generation, come on, it doesn't work. When you think about submission, think about mutual respect, mutual honor, emotional intelligence. Think about love in action. Think about, we're Christians, a lot of us, so you must look at it being Christ sacrificing himself for the church, what Christ did for the church. All those are like literally laying down his life. That is submission in action. A lot of the principles, Christian principles, marital principles that we ought to live by have been polluted a bit. So right now people are just trying to execute things that do not align, and that is why there's so much struggle in marriages. So before I bid you farewell and blow you a kiss, I need you to know that submitting in marriage is not as difficult as it seems. The reason why a lot of people struggle with submission in marriage is because of wrong interpretation of what submission is. So a gentle reminder of the assignment I give you today. Before you sleep, sit down with your wife, sit down with your husband, and ask the person, what does submission mean to you? When you say I should be submissive, what do you mean? And listen to them, not with the intent to correct, but with the intent to understand, have a conversation, but most importantly, come to an agreement of what submission holistically means to both of you, and that will serve in guiding your marriage into bliss. Now here's a promise. If you do this assignment, you do it very well, you will discover that the struggle for, you don't respect me, you're not submissive, will be a thing of the past in your marriage, because submission will not be an issue. Now, let me tell you what we're going to discuss next week, Wednesday by 4:30 p.m. Let's talk about love and survival. Don't you think it's time we talk about that? Because a lot of times when people are married, just assume that it is love, 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 love. It's love all the way. That is why you see people being so lovey-dovey on social media. The next thing you hear, they have crisis. I'm all like, isn't that them that be loving each other every day? What happened? That is what we're talking about next week. So ensure that you join us, because it will be an amazing, amazing session. Good night, everyone.